Hello and welcome to the Grid Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host, Bryce Moose, otherwise known as the Commissioner and the only two-timer. Joining me today is my co-host, Jacob Kaplan. Jacob, how we doing?
Doing great, brother. Nothing better to talk about on a Monday afternoon than some fantasy football, some Dynasty fantasy football, and the Jackson Hole Mountaineers as well.
Yeah, so today we're going to be breaking down Matt's roster. Matt has been one of the best and most consistent fantasy football teams in our league over the past couple seasons. Last year he did come up a little bit short, but he did have a 9-5 season, third in the league in points scored. Always has a great team, always has a lot of talent, and Matt is always willing to make some moves here. All right, so are you ready to get into this? Anything else?
No, I'm ready to get into it. Let's start off at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I should mention that this is our fourth of our team breakdowns. We're going to be redoing Grant and Austin's just so that we have the cameras on, the screen share going, so it's an equal conversation I think for every team.
Higher quality.
Higher quality. All right, so starting off with quarterbacks, Matt leads the way here with Lamar Jackson. Lamar is valued at QB6 overall in Dynasty. I think that's kind of fair. He's always missed a couple games every single season, but we know what his upside looks like. We know he's got the MVP in him. Can he get back to that? We'll see. New offensive coordinator this year in Baltimore and Todd Monken. A lot of new weapons for him. I think this Ravens offense is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. I think he's probably going to finish above QB6 in my opinion. Like you said, lots of new weapons. They got Zay Flowers there, OBJ, Rashad Bateman is finally looking healthy. So, I mean, it's arguably the best cast he's ever had in Baltimore, and new offensive coordinator probably won't be as run heavy. Whether or not that helps Lamar, we'll see. I personally think it will in terms of dynasty or fantasy value, but I think he's going to have a great year. I think it's possibly going to be maybe his second best as opposed to that MVP season. But I think it's going to be a good year for him. I think Zay Flowers is really going to open up some things for him, and maybe he can finally get Mark Andrews back to, that top fantasy asset.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned Todd Monken, but for those not familiar, he was the offensive coordinator for that high-flying Jameis Winston Buccaneers offense. And then he took the job being the offensive coordinator at Georgia. So that's where he's been the past couple seasons. We've seen how good this Georgia offense is. I really think he's going to make things a lot easier for Lamar. We know the running game can always be there with the Ravens, but a lot of the passing stuff, it's basically either Mark Andrews or bust. And I think he's going to do a lot of stuff to help Lamar get some easy throws. A lot of the stuff you saw Justin Fields doing last year, just get the free yards when they come, keep the down and distance short. I'm a huge fan of Lamar, and I think that I'm with you. I think this should be his second best season of his career.
Yeah, I think the rushing will take a hit because they're taking a focus on the passing. That's what Lamar really wanted in his offseason to get that contract. He wanted to ensure that it's going to be a passing team more than running. So, yeah, rushing will take a hit, but I think passing is going to go up. So, should be a good season.
Yeah, and so Matt's QB2, which was looking a little maybe sketchy for lack of a better word last year, Jordan Love now steps into this full-time starter role with the Packers. You can see he's 17th overall on Keep Trade Cut right now. A lot of good plays out of him in training camp. He looked really good in that preseason game too a couple days ago. I don't know. I think I like Jordan Love a lot more now than I did probably a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Jordan Love fan at this point. I tried to sneak him off of Matt in the offseason, I think, for maybe a fourth or and some fab, something simple to get Jordan Love on my team. But he's got so many weapons. He's got Musgraves, he's got Doubs, he's got Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. I mean, that's arguably way better, or not way better, because I guess Devontae Adams is kind of irreplaceable, but it's better than Rodgers had in terms of numbers in Green Bay. So I think he's got all of the talent around him. I think he's a talented quarterback. He's been crushing the deep ball with Watson so far in training camp and looked really good in the preseason game. So I'm a Jordan Love fan. I think he's going to do well. I'd probably like comp him somewhere around like Kirk Cousins.
I think that's
Something
like
around
his
that.
ceiling. Like if it
Yeah.
all
So
kind of
yeah,
goes right for him, yeah.
yeah. So I think he's good. I think he's going to put numbers on the board. I think that Green Bay offense is something I want to be a part of. Um, Regardless of how we feel about AJ Dillon, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, uh, yeah, I think Jordan Love's going to do well this year.
Yeah, and listen, that's not the easiest division in the world too. Vikings and Lions are always, with the way the Lions have looked lately, I think both of those teams are playoff teams. Bears are on the rise, looked really good in the preseason, with Justin Fields continuing to improve. But the Packers have an uphill battle, I think, to have like a great overall season, which means Jordan Love should be throwing a lot. I definitely could see a scenario here where if Matt gets a little bold, there could be a Lamar Jackson trade on the horizon if he feels good about Jordan Love. So we will keep an eye on that one for sure. The other guy we should probably mention is Will Levis, who Matt drafted in the rookie draft. Keep trade cut is not a fan of him. I think a lot of the fantasy community just doesn't think Will Levis is very good. Valued at QB 30 right now. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think QB 30 is probably the right spot. It's fair. He still possibly might be a backup this season. It's just not sure where exactly he's going to end up, right? So Tannehill's still there. What's his name? It's escaping me. The guy from Liberty.
Oh,
Help me out.
Malik Willis.
Yeah, Malik's still there as well. So I think Will Levis has the upper hand on Malik right now. But again, Tannehill's there. He'll probably take a year, maybe a year and a half until he takes that starting role. I think he's looked well in training camp so far. But again, that's something. It's probably better for Matt to hold on to Will Levis just to see where he ends up. He's got this comp of Josh Allen, which I really don't see. I think he's pretty inaccurate, which was obviously the Josh Allen problem coming into the pros. But again, we'll see.
Yeah, I think the Josh Allen comp for him is like a little lazy out of people because Josh Allen came into the league as like we knew he was like a superstar freak show type of athlete. And basically, if you could just get an offense around him, we always thought it was going to work. The big difference there is Josh Allen went sixth overall. Will Levis was a second rounder. I don't think the Titans are overly committed to him. And look, I think Tannehill's going to play as long as the Titans are in playoff contention. If the Titans kind of bomb out, you'll probably see Levis towards the end of this season. But there's like a real shot he doesn't throw a pass as a rookie, and then we can evaluate again in the offseason. But Tannehill is getting older, and if Levis develops, I could definitely see him being a starter there, maybe by next season.
Yeah, I mean, and just kind of looking back at his track record, he was backing up Sean Clifford at Penn State for a couple of years, and then got the starting job at Kentucky, and he didn't really wow me at Kentucky. I think that in that Ole Miss game, he was like the spotlight was on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of flopped. I forget what his stats were for that game, but it wasn't great. I'm not a fan of Will Levis, but I think that's a decent asset for Matt to maybe hold on to for a year or two, maybe, and just see where it goes.
Yeah, it's a zero risk, like all reward, because you're kind of assuming he's like a zero for you, and at least in a one QB dynasty, if he ends up like hitting his potential, that could definitely be. I mean, he has everything you need to be a top 10 QB in fantasy. Right. So definitely one worth keeping our eye out on, but it's going to probably take a couple years before you see any kind of ceiling from Will Levis.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so moving on to running back, Matt ranks 12th out of all 12 teams in running back value. After a couple trades, which we're going to get to when we touch on receivers, Matt has really sold off some pieces here. He basically just has Travis Etienne and then a bunch of guys who they're a bunch of just whatevers. He's definitely not going to have this to start the season. There will be a move made, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But I guess we could start with Travis Etienne. How are you feeling about him this season? Do you like what you've seen so far?
I like what I've seen so far. I think he's going to be a good pass catching back, first round talent. And, he said he wants to rush for 1,600, 1,700 yards. So I think the narrative is there. I think Tank Bigsby is going to take a little bit more workload than some people think. But if healthy, I mean, Travis is a good player. So,
yeah, I think people misunderstand Travis Etienne as a player a lot because we saw him catch a lot of those little bubble screens at Clemson. The Jaguars really haven't asked him to do that all that much. We know he's capable because we've seen so many highlights of him doing it, but I guess the question for me is do they actually want to use him in the passing game? Legitimately, one of these top guys that we see. It's never been a talent issue for me. I've always thought Travis Etienne is very good and very capable. It's more about how the Jaguars kind of want to use him. Calvin Ridley, comes over this year, or is finally cleared this year by the NFL to play. But the Jaguars' offense should be a very, very good offense. A lot of people are projecting the Jags to potentially even win the AFC because of how easy their schedule is. If Jaguars have a lot of leads late in games, I think you're going to see a lot of ETN and Tank Bigsby. I do think Tank Bigsby could take some carries away, but I don't see a way ETN is not an RB1, just assuming health. I think he should be a top 12 guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a situation where ETN's RB1A and Bigsby's RB1B. I think Travis is clear to the RB1 and Bigsby's going to get some touches here and there. Kind of like an A.J. Dillon role, probably, in my opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of the preseason, I get it's preseason, but some of the snap share stuff came out. Tank Bigsby only played one of Trevor Lawrence's first 12 snaps in that first preseason game. Etienne was out there for, I think, 8, and then Jermichael Hasty had a couple. Hasty he was the third down back last year for him, but he wasn't really a fantasy relevant player. I think they want Tank Bigsby to kind of be that pass protector, third down back who can, maybe get a draw carry on 3rd and 7 or a swing pass or something like that. But I think ETN is very safe. I like Tank's big. It's so hard to say his name sometimes. I like him. I think he's a year 2 kind of player.
Yeah.
And then, it's always good to have another body behind your running back. Injuries happen all the time. So doesn't change how I feel about ETN. I really do like him.
Yeah, the next piece I wanted to touch on here, and I think he's pretty low. You think Raheem Mostert is too low for where he's valued at? Keep trade cut?
It's because he is
RB73.
I mean, he is literally on the last leg, right? He's 31 years old. It's a crowded backfield now in Miami. If any kind of injury happens to him, it might be his last game in the NFL. I think that's very possible.
Yeah.
So, look, he's good. I mean, especially early in the season, he's going to be valuable, or he's going to score you fantasy points. You can't trade him for more than a 4th because there's no point, right? Why do I want to take a guy who could play his last snap next week? But, just seeing Pierre Strong.
One of those assets where, if Jonah, who has A-Chain, is making the move to go all in, you might as well.
It's a pure handcuff play. Yeah,
exactly.
It's how Jeff Wilson kind of worked last year, and I know it's the Dolphins' backfield too, but all these handcuff guys who you have no confidence they could find a roster spot anywhere else in the league if they were off that team. They have value to their specific team right now, and you kind of got to ride that as long as you can. So I think he's just going to be a dead asset eventually, but he still has value in the present day. Pierre Strong, I know Matt just traded away McCaffrey, and we're definitely going to get to that trade, but Pierre Strong coming in at RB2 after this, looking at this list of names is kind of surprising to me. Didn't do anything as a rookie, playing with the 3s in preseason. I don't think he's even a lock to make the team, as crazy as that may sound, but he seems kind of high on KTC to me. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. Is he really one spot better than Raheem? I'm not so sure, but
no.
Yeah. But again, like you said, he's the 2 there. So if you look at Matt's running backs, it's just kind of a bunch of 2 or 3 guys who aren't going to get that many opportunities, aside from Travis, obviously. But other than that, you have Leonard Fournette, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who could skyrocket in value depending if he gets a spot or not. I haven't heard anything about where he might land in the offseason. I haven't heard any teams showing interest in him, but that is one asset that maybe other people are in the league are looking at saying, yeah, I might want to buy low in that. And Matt could use that to package a deal to upgrade to a better piece at running back.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some rumors probably 3 weeks ago now that he might sign with the Patriots. If that happens, I think he's definitely fantasy relevant. But yeah, I guess Matt would have 2 Patriot running backs there, so maybe it does work out for him, but who knows. Eric Gray is the guy I wanted to touch on. I was a huge fan of him in the draft process.
Yeah.
Really, really good receiving back. Very consistent player at Oklahoma. Wasn't like a full-time guy. And if you remember, like when Kamara came into the league, everyone's like, well, this guy only touched the ball like 8 times a game at Tennessee. That's kind of how Eric Gray was to an extent. Like they really did split the backfield up at Oklahoma. He's a little older of a prospect. I believe he's already 23 years old, but I definitely do think he has a little talent. Matt Breida is the backup behind Saquon, but Eric Gray is going to make this team, and I could see him potentially kind of taking over Breida's job pretty quickly. I do like him.
You think he'll come in for like the third down spots, maybe give Saquon a little break, or you think he's going to take like a couple drives here and there?
I think Saquon's going to play as much as he can. If Saquon needs a breather, whatever it may be, I think you could see Eric Gray. I think he's going to be a core special teamer unless you see an injury occur or Matt Breida is just terrible. Deneric Prince? A little Deneric Prince action here?
Yeah, I mean, a little Deneric Prince action. It's just, I've seen some clips of him getting some work. But other than that, it's just a backfield that's scary. I mean, CEH goes, did he catch 2 touchdowns in the preseason? Or did he just catch a couple passes, right?
I think he did score, right? But it was a couple passes.
So, I mean, CEH comes out and is kind of firing on all cylinders for Kansas City right out the gate. And, you know, he was kind of like a 0 for a couple weeks at the end of the year.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. I don't have much to say on Deneric, but generic. That's all. That's it.
I do want to mention that this dude is a spark athlete, like freak show. You know, a lot of the same vein of how you see like Darnell Washington, and we saw DK when he came out. Deneric Prince is kind of like that at running back. He's not that big of a guy, but like weight, size, and speed, he is just a freak. He went undrafted. He was just not that productive as an actual runner in college. He played at Florida Atlantic. But he's a guy like maybe you give him some coaching and it just kind of hangs around a roster. If he gets an opportunity one day, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a little something.
Yeah, nice deep stash.
He's definitely a good deep stash. I just don't know about RB5 in my Dynasty roster.
I think Cardero, RB5. Cardero Patterson, RB1 in Falcons off that depth chart.
Yeah, 33-year-old Cordero, man. I'm just going to be so annoyed watching number 84 get a carry over Bijan. That's going to be so maddening. But Cordero's been very good for the Falcons over the last couple of years. He's just much like Raheem Mostert in the same vein of just he's just a little older now, and I don't think the Falcons have him in the long-term plans. I know he's still under contract, but he's more than he. The thing is that Falcons offense has such little talent at wide receiver other than Drake London. Like they just need pass catching backs because it's of all the short stuff. So both Bijan and Cordero should be used in the pass game this year. I don't know how much individual like week to week stuff you can trust out of Cordero. He feels like a weird start. Like you would have to almost have an injury, or you'd have to like have some perfect matchup, I think, for him to be like a playable guy in Dynasty. But he is still there. We know what he can do when given the opportunity, so definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and then last but surely not least, Mo Ibrahim.
One of the all-time
college DFS favorites, but
the true hammer in DFS. 35 carries a game.
Yep. He signed with the Steelers, right? And
Lions,
okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, a crowded backfield, but we'll see. probably nothing is going to happen there. But definitely an all-time favorite. Deserves a shout-out.
Yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim was a guy who averaged, I believe, 33 carries over his
24.
I think it was a 6-year career due to injuries at Minnesota. No, I believe he's 25. Actually, I believe he's actually 25 years old. But 5'8",
not taking any time from Gibbs anytime soon.
No. 25 years old, 5'8", not fast, and has 2 major knee injuries. So I don't think you'll be seeing much of him in a dynasty format, but
unfortunately not.
One of my favorite college guys. Loved his Minnesota days. But all right, moving on to receiver. I will let you take the reins here because Matt's number one guy has only been on his team for about a week now.
Only about a week. He was a Gotham Riddler for quite some time, but CeeDee Lamb, obviously top talent wide receiver. His route tree is amazing. The Cowboys work him into every single route possible, and he has great success on all of them, right? So definitely one of those. He's listed wide receiver 3. I think that's definitely fair. Now, the trade that we did was CD and what else did I give? A first.
I can pull it up.
CD and a first. Yeah, pull it up. I think it was CD and a first for Christian McCaffrey, T. Higgins.
It's CeeDee Lamb, Christian Watson, and a 2025 first for Christian McCaffrey, T. Higgins, and Brock Purdy.
Yep. The Mr. Irrelevant. But yeah, so that's kind of why you see Matt's running back is kind of shallow. He had Christian McCaffrey, gave him to me for Christian Watson and CD, but I think Matt definitely takes a jump in his wide receiver room here. It's an upgrade from T. But yeah, again, CD's a great receiver. He's got an amazing route tree and no insane competition in Dallas. So he's going to get open. He's going to get the ball. He's going to get force fed.
Yeah, I think CD is valued right where he should be overall in Dynasty. Wide receiver 3 seems fine. There's nothing he can't do. We've seen the highlight plays. We've seen the 8-yard slants and out routes and stuff. He's very capable of receiver of doing about everything. My question with you is, have we already seen CD's ceiling? Right? Like, is he the actual special talent of the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, or is he just going to be a really, really good player for a long time?
It's tough to say, honestly, in my opinion. Like, yes, as a standalone wide receiver on a team, yeah, we've probably seen his peak, right? 1,500 yards and a solid number of TDs, right? But he's never had this great help around him. Zeke's been there, but we see where Zeke ends up now. Tony Pollard's there. Hopefully he can maybe open up some things in the passing game. But now he's got Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, and I do think Brandon Cooks is going to have a good season. He's on Matt's team as well, and we'll get into that. But again, maybe if he had some more talent around him, it would open up some things. I mean, he's just this route assassin that finds a way to get open all the time. So if he had a nice complementary piece out there to help him, I think he could do even more. But nonetheless, it's him and then Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup and Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, Jake Ferguson.
Yeah.
So I have CD's stats pulled up here. Last year he had 107 catches for 1,360 yards and 9 touchdowns. I think it's also worth mentioning that through 3 seasons, CeeDee Lamb has never missed a game. It's a lot about that's kind of the DeAndre Hopkins path, just becoming the stat collector for years and years. Is just if you're always out there playing, like you're going to have these great seasons. 160 targets last year. I struggle to like. I guess I don't know if he has the 1,612 touchdown season in him. Like, I think this might be close to his actual ceiling as a player. He might do it for 4 straight years, but I don't know if you're going to see that, like, overall, like, wide receiver 1 kind of ceiling season from him. But a player I'd love to have on my team. I've already sent Matt a couple trade offers for him.
But is it fair to say that maybe, I mean, how many years in a row has Dak been hurt and he's had to play with Cooper Rush or somebody else? Right? So
yeah, Dak's missed a couple games for sure.
So if you put him on another team, which his contract is up after this next year, right? But does he have that possibility to go for 1,600, 1,700 yards and maybe 11 or 12 TDs? I definitely think so.
I think the touchdowns can definitely increase. A lot of the goal line stuff, like CeeDee Lamb strikes me as somebody who should be really good around the goal line. I'd like to see them maybe use him there a little bit more. But yeah, I have no problem with where he's ranked overall in Dynasty. Think that's a great spot. DK is the next guy, and I pulled this trade up. So I made this trade back in December into the season. I sent DK Metcalf and Isaiah Likely to Matt for Tyler Algier and the 103, so JSN. Basically a Seahawk receiver swap. DK is somebody who everybody loves DK as a player. I just don't know how fantasy relevant he is, and I actually will throw a little hot take out here. I think he's the single most overrated player in Dynasty. Okay?
Interesting.
Throwing that out there. DK Metcalf, through 4 seasons, only has 1 season with more than 1,050 yards. Last year, he only had 90 catches and 6 touchdowns. They just drafted another wide receiver. You got Geno on the last year of his contract. I don't know what it looks like in the future for DK, and he gets his reputation based on these big plays. He's not a consistent weekly start. He loves to throw up a 3 for 21 right when you need him most. Again, love the guy. I just think he's very, very overrated in a dynasty aspect. I really do.
So you think he's more of a flex option than a wide receiver too?
Well, I think he's a wide receiver too. The problem is he's ranked as overall wide receiver 14, and he's going to turn 26 this year. I can name you off the top of my head 20 receivers I'd rather have than DK. Like,
who's the 20th?
Treylon Burks.
Treylon Burks. Okay, fair. That's fair.
Like Christian Watson, I'd rather have straight up.
You put Christian Watson over DK in these rankings. Watson's at wide receiver 22 right now.
I think it's close. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, I think those guys are a lot closer than that gap. Because you see,
I mean, there's 14 to 22, but the gap is 1,500 value points or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a big margin, but like you said, I mean, I don't know how much of a hit his value's taken in Dynasty recently.
It's at his all-time peak.
JSN,
I looked at it. Look at it right now. It's at his all-time peak. You cannot tell me that is the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because Lockett always finds a way to get open, right? Mm-hmm. And JSN is going to find a way to get open.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of JSN. So
Kenny Walker and Charbonnet now? I mean, I think the offense is going to be good, but unless you think DK is scoring 15 touchdowns, I don't know how he gets to wide receiver 14 on the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think he's definitely, again, he's always going to be a threat. He's a big body receiver, and he's able to take the top off of a defense. So he's definitely going to get looks. His fantasy output will probably take a hit this year.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is it seems like every single season DK always has the 140 and 2 touchdown game or 3 touchdown game, and then you look up at his stats at the end of the season, you're like, oh, that's kind of all he had.
Yeah,
you know, he's going to win you a week or two by himself, and he's going to lose you a week or two by himself. So I can't pay that price tag for him. I was very happy to get JSN off of Matt, and then of course the Bijan handcuff in that one deal. The trade I was really happy to get done. Matt did have Jamar Chase, and maybe we should mention this. He sent that absolute that crazy trade that we had at the end of last season as well, where he sent Kenneth Walker, Jamar Chase, Trey McBride for. Actually, I can pull.
You got T back, right? You got T Higgins.
Yeah, I can pull it up. It's right here. It was
While you're looking that up, I think one thing worth mentioning, like you just talked about with DK, Matt has CeeDee Lamb, but then the rest of his wide receivers are all guys that can, on any given day, can give you like 8 points or less, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just a little worrisome to me, especially when you have
Christian Kirk is his most consistent number 2 receiver, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's a little worrisome when your number 1 running back is Travis Etienne, and then there's nothing else after that. He's going to have to make some trades and probably upgrade to guys who are going to give you that consistent 12.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I have this trade here. It was Jamar Chase, Kenneth Walker, Trey McBride, and a second round pick for T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, the pick that became JSN, so 103, 205, and a 2025 first.
Yeah.
I think I would do that trade for Jamar Chase straight up, but throw in Kenneth Walker in a second. Why not? But yeah, point being that Matt has lost a lot of running backs in these trades, and he's now going to have to go buy one. What pieces does he throw together? He definitely has a ton of options. A lot of guys he can split up into two pieces, like DK into a running back and a pick, or whatever he wants to do. Christian Watson, you can definitely get a lot for, at least at the running back position. Christian Watson's another guy we probably should touch on. Speaking of inconsistencies, the king of the 80-yard touchdown and then kind of nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was his last 6 games of the season. Something around there is when he had
I have his stats pulled up.
That's when he had like a big jump, but I don't know. I think he's a better Mike Williams. He's got the burners. He's a tall guy, and he's able to take the top off the defense. And he's got some more weapons around him to help kind of freak the defense out. So I don't know. Him and Jordan Love are connecting. They're connecting. So I think he'll have a solid season. But again, I think it'll be more consistent than last year.
Okay. Yeah, my biggest question was worrying about the big plays in general, because you go from Aaron Rodgers with one of the best deep ball throwers in the history of the league to Jordan Love. So I think Christian Watson's value is like really tied into how well like Jordan Love plays.
Yeah.
Remember, this guy only had 41 catches for 610 yards last year. We saw the big plays, and so everyone's seen the highlights of Christian Watson flying down the field. I get it. I know what he can do. The reason I traded him personally was because it's just a de-risk. Like Christian Watson, one of these guys who could just crater in 12 months. So
yeah, same for me. I wanted to, and he's an appealing dynasty asset, right? So people look at Christian Watson and see he's young, he's 6'4", he can fly. So I think the same reason for both you and I was to de-risk and upgrade at a different spot.
Yeah, and it's a calculated risk because there's also a shot Christian Watson's just like really good.
Star.
Could he just do the big plays every couple games and all of a sudden we're looking at a 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown receiver? Absolutely. Just a de-risk I wanted to take. I think it's an interesting gamble on Matt's team, but he's got a couple guys that I don't feel great about on a weekly basis, but long-term could be good. So, yeah.
Yeah, you look at his wide receiver 3, 5, and 6, and they're all pretty much the same type of player, in my opinion.
Literally are the same player, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Williams and Gabe Davis.
If the defense is containing you from that deep threat, then you're going to have those 8-point games, 6-point games.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are excited about Mike Williams this year. I totally get it, right? As long as Justin Herbert is there, with Quentin Johnson kind of taking some attention away, if these guys are just healthy, I think you could potentially see the best career season for Mike Williams.
Yeah.
But he's just never been a consistent guy. He always misses games every season. So yeah. Gabe Davis is kind of the same thing. He played hurt all last season.
Yep. All those players love to take the top off the defense and, be the deep threat. They're fast, they're big, and they have quarterbacks that can get the ball to them. And I do think Christian Watson's going to be okay with Jordan Love. I really do. So far in camp, they've looked great together. It seems like every day I'm getting a report of Jordan Love connecting with Christian Watson deep down the field. So I think he's going to be okay. I think he's probably going to finish better than wide receiver 22 this year. But yeah.
That's a hot take. Wow. Okay.
Is it? Higher than wide receiver 22?
Like a true, wide receiver 2 season out of Christian Watson? That'd be. Listen, if he does it, shout out to you. I'm thinking low end wide receiver 3 personally for me, but
fair.
Christian Kirk, probably the last guy worth highlighting. Had this breakout season last year. I think a lot of people didn't quite understand how good Christian Kirk actually was. Just a route technician, very Cooper Kupp-esque in the kind of the way he plays. Scored a lot of touchdowns, and Trevor Lawrence clearly likes him. Calvin Ridley back this year, and that's just a situation that I wish I had an answer for you for what to expect. I think Christian Kirk's still going to get the ball a ton. Does he have the ceiling still? I don't know. How good is Ridley? I don't know. As long as you're attached to the Jaguars' offense and Trevor Lawrence, I still feel good about you.
Yeah, I think Ridley takes more away from Zay Jones than he does from Christian Kirk. So I think Christian Kirk's going to be fine. I think he's going to have a good season. Is he going to have the same as last year?
It was wide receiver 10 last year.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe still top 15, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Justin Ross, whose value doesn't make much sense to me at all, seeing as he's like probably a coin flip to make the roster.
Yeah,
Above Curtis Samuel and Josh Palmer is like pretty nuts. I get he scored a touchdown in preseason, but so do a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Curtis Samuel's still around like wide receiver 3 and on the Commanders, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I mean, he's always been this gadget player that's going to get opportunities and going to get looks. I think so many of these guys on Kansas City just get points values because they're on this high-powered offense, and any wide receiver that's associated with Pat Mahomes is going to have a solid value. I think there's also just been a lot of hype around Justin Ross this offseason. Mm-hmm. That's probably why he's listed so high on Keep Trade Cut. Again, I think we're in the same boat that we wouldn't list him at Dynasty 71, wide receiver 71. But yeah, definitely I would have Curtis Samuel above him.
Yeah. I'm going to need to see him actually make the team before I have Justin Ross for anything more than like a 4th-round pick kind of value. But we'll see. He definitely, I mean, he was a 5-star recruit, had a good college career, just unfortunate with all the injuries and stuff. But I think he's got the talent. We'll see. He is a Tiger, so that's kind of why Matt loves him.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, if you were in Matt's position, pending like direction of the team, it seems like he's kind of like a middle of the road talent-wise team. Now, obviously, he's going to upgrade this running back position, but in terms of just talent in general, what kind of move would make sense to you, or who on this team would be somebody you'd be looking to sell?
It depends on who he feels is going to have the better season, whether that's DK or Christian Watson. I think either one of those two would be the move, to get rid of one of those in a first and get a running back and a lesser wide receiver. He's got to get some more depth at the running back room in hope that Leonard signs with somebody, and then he's got a bunch of pieces right at wide receiver. It's a bunch of boom or bust guys, but they do have that boom capability. So you're okay with putting them in the flex spot, and depending on the matchup, you can. Or the schedule that team has, you can throw them in the flex. So I would worry less about wide receiver for him and definitely focus on running backs and maybe sell DK and a first for I'm not sure who exactly, but package those guys together to upgrade at the running back spot.
Yeah, I was thinking if he was like to offer Gabe Davis and Brandon Cooks, because he has the depth to do it, to lose both of those guys to like a receiver needy team.
Fair.
It might be one of those situations where you kind of lose the trade in the vacuum, but you really help your roster. 2 receivers for, I don't know, some top 20 running back that he could just play every week, I think would go a long way. He doesn't have a lot of things on that bench right now I feel great about, even if like one injury occurs. Like even if Ramondre Stevenson missed a month, like do you feel good about Pierre Strong?
Right.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is if he gets a solid running back 2 spot, you're still worried about injury because you still have to play 2 running backs, right? So he's going to have to get that's why I'm saying he's going to have to hope that Leonard sign somewhere, or he's going to have to find another running back piece.
Matt on paper should be the perfect trade partner for Zach, who has all these running backs who he
Yes.
can't play, and he needs receiver depth. Matt has the receiver depth and tight ends he can sell because Zach needs that too. Um, will they ever reach an agreement? Will Zach ever open the app again? We will have to see.
Remains to be seen.
We get to Zach on our next set of shows here, and I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Just a bunch of running backs.
Just a bunch of running
No
backs.
trades.
Yeah, no trades, no youth, but we'll get there. Michael Mayer, David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, three very valuable tight ends, I think. Njoku, every single year it seems like, oh, this is the best he's ever looked. You know, will we actually see it translate into like a top 12 fantasy tight end kind of season? I don't know. I've heard it for 3 years and still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, who was when Deshaun was in Houston? Who was his tight end one?
Darren Fells, for the most part, like
Right.
end of career Darren Fells.
Yeah, and so I mean, we'll see. David Njoku, I think he's very athletic. He's talented, but we've never seen him get the rock a lot. So, I mean, we'll see. But Michael Mayer is interesting right now. Didn't play in the preseason games, missed a bunch of practices. We've heard the nickname thrown around a lot that he's Baby Gronk. I'm a big fan, but I'm just not sure. I mean, Jimmy G is going to use him. Whenever Jimmy G was in San Francisco, he always used Kittle, right? So I think he's going to find some opportunities with Michael Mayer. I think he's probably Dynasty tight end 10. I think that's fair. I think that's fair for where he's at right now.
I think it's fair too, and regardless of how you feel about Jimmy G, we know he's not the long-term answer at quarterback for the Raiders. If they get in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes or Drake May or Michael Penix or any of these guys, I think his situation could look really good next year. Again, Devontae at the end of his career as well. Michael Mayer is going to have a lot of opportunity, and he should be a guy who's in this league for a long time. Does it happen year one? I don't know, but maybe towards the end of the season I could see that kind of happening. Njoku is set up well. He's a guy Matt can play every week. And Isaiah Likely being the guy that I hated having to move, but I had to for that trade.
Yeah.
He is a Mark Andrews injury away from literally being a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, or even a trade. I don't see why the Ravens are necessarily holding on to him. I think they could get some decent pieces back. I mean, again, you're going to have Mark Andrews there for a while. He probably wants to stay in Baltimore at this rate, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. He like you said, he's either an injury or a trade away from being a top asset. I'm a fan. You're a fan.
See,
We'll see.
this is where I think I should have mentioned this. I thought about it afterwards, but on Austin's show, we know he has Mark Andrews. I would be trying so hard to buy Isaiah Likely because if anything happens to Mark Andrews, you get a replacement that is like straight up equal in terms of fantasy value. Again, we saw him have an 8-catch, 120 yards and a touchdown game as like a rookie tight end. You just don't see
Out
that.
of nowhere. Yeah.
And he's really not even a tight end. He's more of a big slot receiver, but he's just a matchup nightmare. And I'm a huge fan of him. I really do think he's very good.
If he got a starting role, would you put him ahead of Kyle Pitts?
No, I would. No, I would have him behind Hawkinson. I think that might sound wild too, but I think I would have Isaiah Likely.
That is pretty wild.
A starting Isaiah Likely on the team. Just pick random team. So say Hayden Hurst isn't there and he's the Panthers starting tight end. I literally think I'd have him like tight end 7 or 8. Yeah. Yeah. Just given his youth, I mean, he's 22. Like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And very athletic.
All right. We should mention the picks, too. Matt has sold a lot of firsts. He's recovered a lot of firsts. He doesn't have any 2024 firsts at this point in time.
He's got a 4th, that's it.
He's got a 4th, and he's got 2 first-rounders next year, but both kind of look like they might be late picks as well.
He has mine, and
He has
then
yours and Will's.
yeah,
If Matt does want to embrace the tank, he's got a very clear path to doing it. A lot of guys he can sell, and he can get a ton of picks really quickly. So if this team starts out slow, I would predict Matt wants to blow it up, but we will see.
yeah,
All right. Do you want to do a quick riser, faller, and sleeper?
yeah. Let's do it. I think I'll fire it off with the riser. I'm going to go with Lamar. Like we said, I think he's
Yep.
in line for this possible MVP run. He's got the best weapons around him that he's ever had in his career. So yeah, not much else to say there. I think they're going to let him air it out a little bit more this year. So my riser is Lamar.
Yeah, I think my riser is still going to be Christian Watson, even though like we don't know necessarily how to feel about him. The reason he's my riser is because the path is there for him to be a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy football. He's a number one receiver on the team that's probably going to throw a lot of passes. His value is continuing to go up as it should. So yes, still a riser for me. Fallers?
I think we're probably aligned here. We'll see, but
I doubt
I'm
it.
going to go Fowler. DK.
That's a good one. That was not the one I had picked though.
Yeah, I mean, purely just off of the JSN draft pick and whether or not I think DK is a good receiver or not, I think his fantasy output is just going to decrease just because JSN is there and Lockett's going to be open. And then they have this dynamic duo at running back now. So my faller is DK for just the amount of assets around him.
Yeah, my faller is kind of in the similar vein there, but it's Josh Palmer. He was sold for a second-round pick last year. They drafted another receiver. He is now fourth and buried on that depth chart with a million other guys who can score fantasy points. A guy that we kind of liked a lot last year is like a potential sleeper in fantasy, like in general, like going forward. Now it seems like there's almost no path to him being fantasy relevant in the near future. So that would be my faller. I'll start us off with sleeper, and we might be the same here. Mine is going to be Deneric Prince. If he makes that 53-man roster for the Chiefs, there's like a real shot that he could be a very good asset. So we'll see. It's kind of the same vein as Pacheco, and we saw what he did last year. I know it's the same roster. I know it's the Chiefs, but again, he's one injury away from we know CEH is kind of terrible, so who knows?
Yeah, just kind of runs into his blockers. Yeah, my sleeper is I'm kind of split on two guys here. I'm going to go Brandon Cooks and Rondale Moore. I think both are in this opportunity of.
Yeah, Rondale's a good call. I like that.
He's like. Is it going to be Clayton Tune? I don't know, but I mean, he's going to have the opportunity with Hollywood alongside him to get these targets. And then Brandon Cooks, I think he's playing with CD now, and I think he's going to have some good opportunities. He's got a QB upgrade there, so I think both guys are in a position for better opportunity. They have potential to be very good flex options for Matt.
I like it. All right. I think to finish up today, we should do a quick prediction. I'm going to predict that the Jackson Hole Mountaineers miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
5-8 season.
5-8.
Whoever has Matt's first is going to be very happy. That's my prediction.
That's your prediction. Okay. I'll say miss the playoffs. As of right now, especially. Depending on what moves he makes, right? We'll see. But as of right now, miss the playoffs. Would you say 5-8? Yeah, I'd probably go somewhere around there, maybe like a 6-7 type season.
All right. Yeah, I say all that, and this could go totally different depending on the moves he wants to make. Again, if he wants to sell CeeDee Lamb for a running back and like another asset, I think this could look a little different. If Zach wants to take CeeDee Lamb on and maybe move Saquon in the process, I will change everything I just said. But Matt's going to have to work the phones, I think, to improve this team before the season starts.
Yeah, and I believe he will be. When we were doing our trade, he said he wants to remain a contender. So he's playing the middle ground right now. I think he's going to try and still make a push for the playoffs.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening today, everybody. Next time we will be back with the highly anticipated Zach Griffiths team review. Should be our longest and best show yet. I am already looking forward to it. Got my notepad ready. Jacob, any last words?
No. Have fun, carry on, and go Riddlers.
All right. Thanks, everyone.